This is Playa Montezuma, right next to the small pueblo Montezuma, and it's kind of the beginning of a trail that follows the coastline. Sueno Verde is the trail. This is the first beach outside of the little village, and you continue along the beach, and then you'll pick up this trail put in there by a naturalist, and they sort of made it a park. Now it seems what you're going to notice, it's wide open. There's not a whole lot of people. I mean, there's just a few folks. Today's purpose was to basically do a little bit of a hike. What I liked certainly was the fact that the trail was open to the public. You didn't have to pay. Almost all trails in Costa Rica you have to pay for, so this was a pleasure to be able to walk along the beach. Now the trail actually takes you kind of into the interior a little bit. You see the beach right next on your right side, if you will. So it's a little bit less exposed. Here, don't be surprised, you are on the equator. It's a little deceiving. When the sun is out and it's not being diffused by clouds, it's not toasty like what we have in Texas, but you can definitely feel it on your skin. So take proper precautions, hydrate well, and wear sunscreen, because you are going to need it. I mean, I think the purpose of today's trip was really to spend the day on the beach, and a lot of it was spent, not a lot of it, but some of it was spent just walking along the beach. I think what's very interesting is you're walking on these beaches, you turn a corner, and then it just keeps on going. And there is this innate explorer in me that I want to see what's on this side. I want to let's get past this next point and see what's around the corner. My family was much less inclined, so we got to another beach called Playa Grande, which is far more remote. It's a beautiful beach. There's absolutely nobody there when we got there. Maybe one occasion you'll see a person pop in or so, but it's pretty remote. And there's a whole story that happens on our way to Playa Grande. My wife, she's got these flip-flops, and she loses one of the flip-flops in a tiny little stream that's emptying itself into the ocean here. And there goes the flip-flop, and I'm like, well, why would you wear flip-flops? We're going on a hike. And of course she says, well, I didn't know we were going on a hike. She knew we were going on a hike. Anyway, she loses the flip-flop. I'm watching it because I'm thinking, man, I've got to get that flip-flop. We've got a hike, and you can't do this hike barefoot, and I don't want to go back to the hotel. It's too far away. So anyway, I'm looking, I'm watching, I'm seeing this little flip-flop floating, and in no time at all, that darn flip-flop gets sucked out by the waves, and it just disappears. I think if I had seen it, I would have jumped in and I would have gotten it. That's a bit of a problem, and I'll tell you why. So here's the trail. This is the nature reserve, I guess. Again, this is very close to Ylang Ylang, which is a resort just outside of Montezuma. And so if you're staying at the resort, you've got access to this trail and all of this beach. So that's probably a house that's maintained. That a lot of these beaches or parks, if you will, have a on-site park ranger or custodian, and more often than not, that's who's living in those structures. So anyway, here's the trail. It kind of goes through the woods a little bit. It's still kind of open, easy enough to see around. You can hear the ocean on one side of it. Now, as we get to Playa Grande, you see this little sign. Well, what I didn't see is just to the right and up a little bit is a little sign that says, watch out for the riptides. So we get to this beautiful beach. It's wide open, nice, flat, smooth, easy transition into the water. It looks real benign, and everybody at this point was pretty hot, and they were ready to sort of kick back and relax. And so we did find a nice little spot. Not exactly here, but further up, maybe around one or two more of these little points, and we made camp, if you will. and decided to go into the surf and sort of body surf. The waves were actually pretty big here, and my son and I did get caught in one of those riptides, and I was not prepared for it. I'm going to do another video because I actually had the camera running in my pocket while we went out swimming, and it was terrifying. I mean, the riptides are nothing to fool with. Just some advice, as I found out later after having my near-death experience, is you can't fight it. You have to get away from the pull of the riptide. Basically, you can swim on your back, let it take you out as far as it's going to, and then it's going to release you, and then you swim somewhat parallel, but diagonally to the shore. Don't go directly into it, which is going to be directly against the riptide, but you're going to go at it at a slight angle, and don't freak out. Whatever you do, thread water, float, or whatever it takes to keep your energy up, because you will never. I don't care if you're Michael Phelps. You're not going to beat the riptide. So this trail kind of goes in, and then it kind of goes out on the beach a little ways, and then you pick up the trail again. It gets a little bit higher elevation, not much. I mean, it gets a little bit rocky in some spots, and I think at this point Melissa realizes that this trail is a little bit hairy, and I think we had kind of decided to turn around, and then we ran into this other family, and she was familiar with it, and she said, no, just go. It's not much further. It's just over this next hill. So we decided to continue forward, if you will. And so, as fate would have it, so she's walking with one flip-flop. Actually, she put it in her hand, and Isaac, one of my sons, is up ahead, and he kind of finds all of this debris that the ocean has brought in, and he finds a matching flip-flop. It didn't match in terms of color, but it was the correct foot that she had lost, and it was the size that fit, and there you go. Given the riptide experience that I had here, if I had jumped in the water where that flip-flop got sucked out, which is all around a whole bunch of rocks, I would have gotten some. I was arrogant. I would have gotten some real bad beating up. And I did actually talk to one other Tiku guide that told me that he got caught in a riptide and he got bashed against those rocks, and somebody on shore had seen him and jumped on the rocks and pulled him by his hair, and he said that he was all scratched up, and because the rock is like lava rock, and once it hits this water, it's like darn sharp. It's hard to walk on. So yeah, it does happen. It even happens to local people. But anyway, this is kind of gives you a little sense of the topography of the beach. It's not exactly this beautiful, pristine, sandy beach. It's a little bit more dramatic. I think that those beaches that tend to have this perfect sand also tend to have a lot of development. So this is a little bit more primitive. I mean, I kind of like it. I think I like it because you just don't have the people development, and you can find your own little section of paradise and not see anybody. Right up against the shore, there's all kinds of coconut trees. The kids knocked down half a dozen of these coconuts, and boy, were they! I mean, it was a little bit warm to coconut milk, but we used a stick and jammed a hole in it and replenished some of our electrolytes. And again, that was an excellent way to recharge. I suppose that we hadn't really planned on how long or how arduous this little hike was. It's not particularly arduous, but I think when it's hot like this and the clouds are not giving you any cover, it's warm. You're on the equator, so I think this is the first time that I really kind of felt that it was hot out. So again, sunscreen, be hydrated, and be prepared that if you're going to go for any length of time, probably having snacks and some additional water is a good idea. And of course, respect the riptides. And if you don't see it signed, you don't see any signs or something warning you about it, just assume that any beach is going to have riptides and approach it with that degree of caution. So again, I'll do another video on the whole PTSD experience of doing the riptides. But look at this sky, look at this water. I mean, this is really gorgeous. I can see why people Oh, from the U.S. come down here. This is Playa Grande right here. Look at this mirror finish. It's extremely smooth, a slow beach transition into the ocean. But what you don't see is that when you get past about the third wave, maybe the fourth wave, boy, those waves have kind of scalloped out the bottom of the ocean, and you drop drastically. Where the first three waves, it's easy to touch ground. The fourth wave, where the real big waves are coming in and you're really having some fun now, it kind of pulls you out the next maybe 1 or 2 or 3 feet, and you can't touch ground. And if the force and the tide is going out, that can be enough to prevent you from. I don't care how hard you're going to swim to shore, you're not going to win. You're not going to make it. So. Anyway, this is again, it's a little bit more dramatic than just this sandy little pebbly little beach, and we didn't continue on. But I think these beaches is like they just keep on going. You turn another bend and there's another beach. You turn another bend. We never really ran into what I would consider private property where you couldn't walk.